age 68. Debbie was a wife to Ray. She was a mother to Allison, Andrew, and Amanda. She was loved as a mother, mother-in-law, sister, aunt, sister-in-law, daughter, and friend. Debbie will be dearly missed. It's good today for us to meet. It's good for us to share our joys, our memories with Debbie, our sorrows as well, our hopes for tomorrow. Today, this funeral service will include the reading of some favorite scriptures. There will be written and spoken eulogies from Mr. David Dulmage, also lifelong friend Vanessa McPherson. And the Dulmage family members are going to brave this and make their way to the podium. Ray, Allison, Andrew, and Amanda, all of them, they're still deciding who's saying what as of yesterday. I'm sure they've got it arranged by now. We're going to sing the first hymn, which is Amazing Grace, and there were some sheets being handed out because the chorus book here at Barker's just was not going to be used with current version of songs and such. And the song is Amazing Grace, My Chains Fell Off. So this is a different version than the original Amazing Grace, which we might traditionally sing at a funeral. Ray and I had an interesting conversation this week because he was quite adamant that we would sing this specific song. I've never sung it publicly yet. This is my first time. And I said, you know, Ray, there's the old traditional one that's in the Barker hymn book. We could just have this one. And Mrs. Watson would know it automatically. And he said, no, it's got to be the new one. So we're doing this one for Ray today, everybody. That's okay. Also, let me just add, all the papers being handed out beforehand, we were slightly delayed. That's okay, because most of the time I was with Debbie, she was handing out papers to somebody, either with the board or Sunday school or Stampeders or something. So everything today is just appropriate so far. I'm asking everyone to stand. The family will remain seated. Amazing Grace, My Chains Fell Off. Everyone standing. Help each other out. It's the new version of Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior, ransom me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. The Lord has promised good to me. His word my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior, has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. My chains are gone, Chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior, has ransomed me. And like a flood, his mercy reigns. Unending love, amazing grace. The earth shall soon dissolve like snow. The sun forbear to shine. But God who called me here below will be forever mine, will be forever mine. You are forever mine. You may be seated this morning.
We want to give our deepest condolences to Ray, Allison, Andrew, and Amanda and your families. We are truly sorry and we understand what you're going through. I was 33 when I lost my mom. She was my best friend, my mentor, so I know what you're going through. But to have that assurance that God is with you, I remember thinking, what a big hole in my life when Mom left. And she was the one I could always go to for prayer. And I'm sure the same for you. Debbie was there always for you to pray. But you know what? Now is the time that you take the torch that she held for so many years. And it's for you now to take the faith that she has run well with. And it's for you to have that. Debbie was a supporter of ours, and we loved her dearly. We've known her, and her love for God was number one. And then close to that was her family, and then her church family. And that's why there's so many here today, is because of her love for people in each of the ones that are here. About Debbie, she never wavered in her faith. She was solid. She had a deep faith in God. And she is definitely receiving her reward for being, and God would have said to her when she entered the gates, "Well done, faithful servant." And she would have been dancing. She would have been dancing through those gates. And she is definitely going to be missed. But we have that promise that today is not the end. For Debbie, it's just the beginning. And it's just a chapter that we have to wait in between until we all will be together again. I'm going to read 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 1 to 13. If I speak in tongues of men and of angels, but have not loved, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all the mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It's not rude. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no wrong records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when perfection comes, the imperfection disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a woman, I put childish ways behind me. Now, we see but a poor reflection, as in the mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now, I know in part. Then I shall fully know, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Father, I thank you for Debbie's life. She had a great heart of love, and you said that is the greatest thing of all. We come today remembering Debbie because of her love, and we thank you for her life. We thank you for her example that you have given to us, that we may also follow in her footsteps, knowing that love is the greatest of all. No matter what wisdom we have, what knowledge we have, it all boils down to love. If we do not have that, we are empty. And Debbie was so full. She was so full. She loved you. She loved her family to overflowing. So today, we want to live on that legacy by loving others as she has loved all of us. And we give you the praise for her life. In your name, amen.
I'm asking David Dulmage to come to the podium if he would, and Vanessa McPherson as well. Vanessa can just sit here with me. And David, would you come? And we'll hear now a couple of eulogies from a brother-in-law and from a lifelong friend.
As we've heard, Debbie was born in Perth in 1956, and she moved to Carleton Place in 1966, where Dad built a house on Grant Street here in Carleton Place. Debbie played broomball and tennis. She was a talented pianist. I don't know if a lot of people knew that, but she was. She worked a number of years at in the Treasury Department at Bell Northern Research for 13 years, I believe it was, and she was also the church pianist at Calvary Pentecostal Church. She met my brother Ray at a company dinner. We had a dinner where employees and directors, and Ray was on the board of our directors, went, and my sister-in-law kind of set up a blind date. Ray probably might tell you more about that. And I remember one of the things she said to Debbie was, you don't really have to sit with them if you don't want to, but apparently they liked each other and things developed from there. As you know, she's got three beautiful children, Allison and Andrew and Amanda. And, you could talk a lot about the things Debbie was involved in. She was a quite accomplished person. She oversaw the building of the beautiful home that they had built in the mid-90s outside of Carleton Place. She also worked for our company for a number of years. But In 2001, Debbie was involved in a major car accident where she and Ray were returning home and they were hit head on, and life was never the same for her after that. Her health deteriorated to the point where she, in 2013, was no longer able to work and had to have home care for most of the rest of her years. And as a result, Ray and Debbie decided to sell what had been, they thought, their forever home and downsize to something more practical because of her limited mobility. And she has, as you know, a number of beautiful grandchildren, Jack and Sam and Grayson and Avery and Oakley. And that was her life, I think. Debbie lived for her grandchildren. She loved them unconditionally. You know, if you look at pictures of Ray and Debbie's home, you'll see time after time her holding these children in her lap and letting them play with her on her chair or in the house, playing games with them and so on. And that was part of the essence of Debbie. Debbie was a very loving and patient individual. You know, when Allison was about to be born, and I'm not sure if it was a mutual decision, but Ray decided they would renovate their home. And it was in the middle of being renovated, and Debbie couldn't return home with a newborn. She ended up they stayed with her parents, which was fine, but that's not the same as coming home when you have a newborn child. And I thought, Ray, what were you thinking? Like, you know, but she was a woman of infinite patience. And I'm sure Allison and Andrew and Amanda, you can recall the sterner things that all mothers have to do as parents. But my experience with her was that she was a very, gracious and patient and loving individual. Her home was always a place where you were welcome. Her pantry was well stocked with snacks and treats that she could give to visitors. And but the thing that really drove her, I think, she was very active in kids ministries in the church. She worked in the church for years, and her desire was to see people come to the Lord and to see people grow in their knowledge of the Lord. And, you know, we can sit here and we're celebrating a life well lived and we're mourning at the same time. But we know that Debbie had a strong faith in the Lord, and she's gone on to be with Jesus. The last few years, and particularly the last few weeks of her life, were hard for her. She suffered. I mean, that's the honest fact. It was painful, and it was, you know, I can't imagine what it'd be like to be in that state and kind of having an inkling of what was to come. And right through right to the end, she was always gracious and kind. You go in to see her, and you know, she would make sure you had a place to sit and were comfortable and everything, even though she was bedridden. So we're certainly going to miss a beautiful woman. I know you children and grandchildren. It's a big hole left when somebody goes home. You know, God gave us this tremendous capacity to love and to connect with people. So when they leave, it's hard. But we're going to see her again. If we have put our faith in Jesus Christ, we are going to be reunited someday. And we have that hope. It's not a hope like, I hope I get a pony at Christmas or something. It's a sure hope that we have in the Lord, that we sorrow not totally bereft or without hope, but we sorrow at the same time with this confidence in what Jesus has done for her and what he will do for us as well.
Well, I've known Debbie for just over 50 years. Now, I know you might be thinking, wow, she looks pretty young to know someone for that many years. So thank you. Oh, thank you. I met Debbie at church, and I remember very clearly how she used to come out to the house in Franktown, where I lived, and pick me up and take me to youth on Friday night. We called it Christ Ambassadors, or CAs for short back then. And she would come and pick me up and take me to that. And then she would bring me back home afterwards. She would come in her red Volare, red, black interior. And I used to think, oh, I hope some of my friends are around to see me in this car, because it was pretty sporty and I liked it very much. But she was always faithful to come out and pick me up and take me to Christ Ambassadors. I remember one time we drove to Coburg Camp. And again, she had a red Volare, and her and I drove up to Coburg Camp for the youth camp. And we stayed overnight with my Aunt Marguerite because she had a cabin there. And we had a great time together, and it was just so much fun. Well, she dated quite a few guys over her years when she was a teenager. But the last one, well, Ray, I remember she introduced me to Ray, and he said hello, and I said hello, and that was the whole conversation. I thought, wow, he seems really quiet. I don't know, like Debbie was very bubbly and happy, and just very outgoing. And Ray I thought was very quiet. But once I got to know Ray, he was very talkative. Wow, I was really surprised. And very smart too. So I thought, well, Ray, Debbie, this is it. And sure enough, not long after that, they announced that they were getting married. And she'd asked me to be one of her bridesmaids, and I was very honored to be her bridesmaid. Well, a couple years later, my brother Barry, who had become good friends with Ray, my brother Barry and I went with Ray and Debbie on a road trip to Florida. And we went to Walt Disney World. We went to Cocoa Beach, right? Yeah. I think we went to the Nassau. Yes. Anyways, and we would share a room just to save money. And I remember one night when Debbie and I got into bed, I felt something at the foot of my bed. And I jumped out right away. I think Debbie, she didn't seem to be too alarmed about it, I didn't think. But I was a little scared. Anyways, I wouldn't get back in that bed. So we rolled the covers back, and here was a little rubber shark that Barry or Ray had bought. I don't know which one. But anyways, yeah, they tried to scare me with that. And while we were there in Florida, one morning, we always went down together for breakfast. Well, one morning, Ray and Debbie wanted to stay behind. And I thought, we always go down together for breakfast. Why are you staying behind? And but they insisted, no, you and Barry go down. We're going to stay behind. Well, okay, I reluctantly went with my brother Barry down to the restaurant. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, well, we should wait and order. No, we should wait on. No, Barry says, no, let's just go ahead and order. Okay. And I'm thinking, this is kind of rude of them. They're not coming down. Anyways, they did come down finally, and they're all lovey-dovey. I think, what's going on? Well, wouldn't you know it? Just a little over 9 months later, Allison was born. I was thinking, I didn't know whether to share that or not. Yeah, but I know Debbie would want me to share. When I was getting married, I'd asked Debbie to be matron of honor in my wedding. And she was. She did a wonderful job. She was such a good support, helping with everything with the wedding. A few years down the road, I had children, a son and a daughter, Darren and Delane. And they would call Ray and Debbie Uncle Ray and Aunt Debbie. And they loved going to their house. It was a big house, lots of places to hide when you play hide and seek. And they also liked to get into Aunt Debbie's pantry because she had lots of snacks in there. Lots of good memories. Well, my mother hadn't been very well, and I had called Debbie. I was living in Barrie at the time, and I called Debbie to let her know that Mom wasn't doing well, that she was very low. And here, lo and behold, Debbie, my mother and Dad were in the nursing home at the time. Here, Debbie went to the nursing home and sat with my mother throughout the night, all night, until I arrived the next morning. And she sat there and held her hand and comforted her. And I didn't ask Debbie to do that. She just went ahead and did it. She always knew what to do.
Yeah, that's right.
I came just last month in April, I came to see Debbie. And I was here for the week, and I was so glad that I did. We had good visits. The day that she passed away, I called her that morning. I know she couldn't respond, but I was able to talk to her and tell her that I loved her. It wasn't too long after that she had gone into the presence of the Lord. And I know where she is today. I would like to close with words of a song that I think Debbie would be singing as she entered heaven. Oh, I want to see him, look upon his face, there to sing forever of his saving grace. On the streets of glory, let me lift my voice. Cares all past, home at last, ever to rejoice. Cares all past, she's home at last, ever to rejoice. Love you, Debbie.
I'll ask you to stand again. The family will remain seated and reach for your handout. I will sing of my Redeemer and his wondrous love to me. I will sing of my Redeemer and his wondrous love to me. On the cruel cross he suffered, from the curse to set me free. Sing, oh sing of my Redeemer. Purchase me on the cross. He sealed my pardon, paid the debt, and made me free. I will tell the wondrous story, how my lost estate to save. In his boundless love and mercy, he the ransom freely gave. I will sing my Redeemer, with his triumphant power I'll tell how the victory he gives me o'er the sin and death and hell. I will sing of my Redeemer and his heavenly love for me. He from death to life hath brought me, Son of God, with him to be. Sing, oh sing of my Redeemer, with his blood he purchased me. On the cross he sealed my pardon, paid the debt, and made me free. You may be seated. We're asking Ray and the A-Team to come at this time. Allison, Amanda, and Andrew, affectionately nicknamed the A-Team. Are they all coming? Is everybody coming? Even if they're not saying anything, they're going to come and stand in solidarity and love today for their mom.
Kind of move this one down. I'm the short one in the family. So I'm Allison. I'm Debbie's oldest, if you haven't met me before. And I'm actually going to start off with reading a message from my brother, Andrew, first. Amanda and I are the talkers in the family, so is Dad, and Andrew's more of the silent and stoic type. Yes, strong and silent. We'll go with that. So Andrew just wanted to say that he's going to miss talking on the phone with Mom every day driving home. I know he called Mom every day coming home from work. That was his time with her. And and seeing Mom light up when he would bring the kids over. That was, as you've heard from everyone, Mom loved being a grandmother. That was her life. That was everything to her. And she just loved children. And I'm not home very often because I live overseas, but every time I was there, it was if the grandkids were coming, that was Mom's best day. And Andrew's also going to miss the time with Jack and that Jack had with Mom. I know Jack refers to Grandma as his special person. And also for Dad's shirts being too small. That was the commentary that has been had with that. And last thing Andrew wanted to say was that he loves Mom very much. And as you can see with the 2 notes, I've got 2 pages. Andrew sent me one on his mechanic notepad. So I just wanted to say thank you for everyone coming today to honor Mom, our mom, Debbie. Yesterday and today has been absolutely an incredible testament to who our mom was. And thank you for taking the time with us to share your stories and words of affection. It's just a true testament to who she was. And I think of my mom is love. And I just want to quote 1 Corinthians 13:13 when Paul writes, "So now faith, hope, and love abide, these 3, but the greatest of these is love." And my mom lived her life by this verse. Today I want to share with you the light who is my mother and the love and care and affection she had for us and anyone whose lives she touched. Unconditional love is the greatest gift our mom gave us. No matter what happened in life, even if we burned the house down, we knew that Mom's love for us would never falter. To be unconditionally loved meant safety for us. I could always go to Mom with anything. There are no parts of me or things I had done that she wouldn't receive with a heart of grace. And my mom also, she loves love. Especially speaking of love, her love of the Hallmark movies. And it was a constant play in the house. She loved love. She loved the happy ever afters. And anyone who spent time with in recent years has probably watched the Christmas Tree Hallmark movie 1,000 times. The storyline is always the same. Small town girl comes back from her big city life, meets or reconnects with a local guy, and after some initial apprehension, they fall in love. She decides to stay and take over the family business. And Mom seemed to play these when I was home, so I always kind of suspected it was a hint, a wishful hint to get me to return to my small town roots. Yes, but well, she got me home twice this year, so she's done well. Mom also knew that it was the little things that really counted. That's how you show people that you love them, the small things. As all of you are here today will know, Mom's expression of love was through her acts of service and quality time. I still remember the stickers and the small handwritten notes she would put in my lunchbox for me to find. The snacks she prepared for us when we walked through the door, and the infamous craft box full of wonder where we could select any material that we wanted in this magical Rubbermaid container and create whatever our imagination came up with. And then the tradition of Christmas pajamas was born. I'm not sure exactly when, but it started. And that was the one gift that we could open on Christmas Eve. Even as adults, the tradition continued. And this past Christmas, Mom and Dad organized a Christmas box, which they shipped to Thailand. And of course, inside were the Christmas PJs, which I wore actually since I've been back. And she also, and just so thoughtful, not just pajamas, but, drawings from the boys. That was her favorite pastime, was especially with Jack and Sam, to draw with them. And Avery had her little notepad. She would come and draw as well. And all those beautiful things. Again, the message is Mom was so thoughtful and so caring and just selfless in every way. The other part was that Mom saw our home as a home for everyone. It was a communal place where Mom joyfully welcomed anyone who entered. And during our teen years, our home was where hungry teenagers would flock. And I know there's a few people here that can attest to this. As mentioned, the pantry was always stocked full of snacks and pop, and the freezer with the typical teenage fast food cooked meals like chicken nuggets. And even when those years were long and gone, she still made sure there was plenty of food in the house for any guests who might stop by. The grocery list Mom created, as I always tease, were a sign of her too much gene. But truly, she wanted to be sure that hearts and stomachs were full and filled when you came for a visit. And when Mom needed care over the last few years, she quickly won the hearts of her personal support workers with her genuine interest and care for who they were. I will always remember the laughter shared between them, and especially Jen, Yuki, Mike, Christina, Elaine, and Brenda. You are just as much a part of our home as we are as family. And that is exactly how Mom saw you and wanted you to feel. And with these beautiful memories, I am now faced with the reality of her passing. Through conversations with close friends, I thank you so much for those that I have spoken to, especially those who have walked this path before me. I had one resounding question. How can I ever come to terms with losing the only people who you were parts of? How do we do that? And through my grief, this is what I have concluded. Before, I had never really grasped the true meaning and connection fully of a mother until now. My mom is as much a part of me as I am of her. She is with me through her love, her words, our shared moments, and even my DNA. I'm holding on to this for comfort. She is still here with me in many facets. So as we leave here today, please know my mom, Debbie, is still a part of our lives. We carry her with us through remembering the sound of her voice, her laughter, and most importantly, her love. Thank you. We have a very special someone that has asked to share a little bit about Grandma.
My name is Jack, Debbie's oldest grandson. My grandma is special because she was funny, smart, always talked about me, like always. Like, have you seen Jack's drawings? Have you seen Jack's comic books? Have you seen Jack, etc. And she was very supportive. Like one time since I like drawing and stuff, I thought like I was drawing a transformer, like that's me, and I didn't think it looked good because, but Grandma, aka Debbie, for most of you, said it. She loved it, and that's another example of her support and love and yeah.
Well, I'm the baby. I'm Amanda. I just thought I'd get that out there. I'm going to try to get through some like really awesome memories with my mom. Some of my friends that were part of them are here. We grew up together. So one of them was like, I had a birthday party and we did a tea party. It was her idea. She was very fancy about it, actually. She talked in a British accent and told us to like point our pinkies up and go like this. And she'd like chase us around. My friends were actually talking about it yesterday when they came. It is one of our fondest memories with her. It was just such a blast. I don't think we ever laughed so hard. It was like my favorite one. The other like memory I have of her is when I was pregnant with my husband and our last son, Oakley. My mom knew I didn't like to be touched for whatever reason. And one time she asked to touch my belly and I said, no. And then we went to dinner for the last time together with my dad and her ever. We went to Moxie's in Canada and we had dinner. My dad was falling asleep while we're eating. And so the servers and I are all talking to him and he's like, mm-hmm. I'm like, so my mom and I started making fun of him because that's what we do. We just like to tease dad. It was a good time. And he was just like, yeah. I was like, sorry, he's kind of just out. So before we finished dinner, it was actually really good. We had a good time. She had asked me before they left, can I touch your belly? And I said, this time I said yes. And she was so excited. She's like, oh, I'm so excited. She rubbed my belly and she had the biggest smile, which I'll never forget. It is so beautiful. And it made me like really happy. I tried not to cry. And then my last one, she came to when we came to the hospital. And she hugged me so tightly and told me she loved me and kissed me. And I've never felt her grip so tight before. I think she knew she was going to go. So it was nice for her to just come around and do that. And then she hugged my kids and Grayson said, I love you, Grandma. And he kissed her. And that was like, it was just really sweet. I was so happy that I hadn't seen her in so long in person. We've been doing like video calls every day just to keep her in the loop. Because I know she loved, as we all keep saying, she loved kids. But yeah, that's my fondest memories of her. And she was always really good to us, my children and my husband. And she was always fun. We always joked around. But that's all I have. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Great.
Well, some people have taken part in my talk, but I'll fill it in. People who know me know that I like things to be in a certain order. So I started out first, I'm going to finish high school, did that, and did well in it. Got to university, did well, graduated, got my degree, started a business. And then I thought, well, now it's time to get dating and get married and have 6 children. So I'm going to title this Debbie and Ray's Hallmark movie, City Boy Meets Country Girl. So as my brother explained, yes, I was supposed to attend this dinner, and my mother had informed me that I could not attend if I did not have a date. So I'm going, that's going to be difficult. But my brother and his wife conspired. That's what they did. And I don't know how they did this, but they told her that I have this younger brother who's very smart, kind of geeky, very shy, has a business. Do you want to come to this dinner? And I'm thinking, okay, they didn't tell me this. But they told me that Debbie handled $1 million a day at Bella Northern and Treasury. And I said, did you always like to think about money and investment? So anyways, I said, that's fine. So I should tell you that Debbie is a romantic, and I'm the guy who's sentimental. So sometimes I don't pick up clues. So on December 6, 1980, I picked up my new shiny green Porcelain Bear and Sedan. And I drove to the place we had it, and my brother and his wife brought Debbie. And I can walk in the building and see my brothers and my wife standing with her in the back. And she turned around and she smiled. That was it. Such a beautiful smile, such a one person, and a very smart man. So we sat down and talked to Ray, and me and my sister, and I said, what do you think? And then she asked me that. And so, to their surprise, because I was supposed to be notoriously cheap. It's not true. But to drive her home from the parent place in the new car. So I did that. She invited me in. Her parents were at the fireman's ball. I don't know if Alan and Karen, you were home at that time, but anyway, so she made tea. And I apparently consumed 12 dozen cookies because I love oatmeal. So her parents came home at 4 a.m. in the morning. I was still there in the kitchen. And I didn't hear about how I'd eaten all the cookies her mother had made until later. But anyways, so a little while later, I waited, and my brother Dan said, you better call her back. She's waiting for a call. So we went skating around Christmas in Carlton Place. And that sped up after that. And I suppose it's been every weekend at their house. And Alan would let me use his bedroom, and my staff would run my business. So on the Valentine's Day 1981, around that, I would come out on the weekend, and on the Sunday I went to leave, the car wouldn't start. So her father said, well, you stay over and tomorrow morning we'll get it fixed. So I'm sitting there going, well, I better ask this person if I want to marry her. So being shy, we were watching the CBC worst movie theater. And the movie on the screen was Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. And I should ask, I gave her first kiss on the 4th date, and she told me that I needed lessons. So I was more than willing for lessons. But anyways, so being nervous, because it took a lot of courage, I said, did you want to make the relationship permanent? To which her response was, are you asking me to marry you? And I said, yes. And she said, can't you tell by the look in my eyes? No, I had bifocals, so that was. Anyway, she said I had to ask her dad, so I did. And he said, you don't need to ask me, it's okay. But her mother said, thank goodness, because you were eating us at a house and home. So we got married on June 13th, 1981. It was a very warm, sunny day. Some of you that are here were at the wedding. We had 3 children, 4 houses, 5 adorable grandchildren, and you are right, my wife lived for the grandchildren. She didn't want to go because she always wanted to be here for Sam, Jack, Avery, Oakley, and Grayson. But it had to come to an end, and I always, because I like music, to me the words are the Wichita Lineman. Anybody know that song? Remember, he says, I will hear you singing in the wire. I can hear you through the wine. I will always hear her talking to me. And I would not be remiss in thanking the extraordinary care that she got over the last 11 years. People do not understand. When you are sick, people often don't come and visit you. If you have somebody who's ill in your family, please go and visit them. Comfort is just being there. But I have to really say that the PSWs, who I know a great deal of entertainment from coming to see her, I'll say them again, Yuki, Elaine, Colleen, Christina, Genevieve, Brenda, you were also good to her and made her day. And I also wanted to thank you, Andrew. Andrew Yon is Jack's piano teacher. Because Debbie could not sleep in the bed, she spent most of her day in this power chair in the living room. And when Jack came for his lessons, she would sit there, and apparently Andrew and Debbie would come back with jokes. So Andrew and his family, but I really want to thank you, Andrew. Andrew asked if he could come in when she was in palliative care, and he came in and he sat with her. And I had to talk to you in Bangkok, and Andrew, you said 7 hymns. And you noted that she actually, when she got to Jesus Love Me, she seemed to be able to keep the beat. I don't know how much that means to us, Andrew, that you took that time. And I also wanted to thank Brad Gold. Brad Gold is a friend of mine that I met through Standards work. Brad, you and your wife were so kind to offer your home to me, to bring hot food for Andrew and I, and to sit and talk. And Brad, of course, had met my wife. So I sincerely appreciate that. And there's a lot more I could say, but 43 years is hard to condense in 10 minutes. I would certainly miss her very much. And it's going to be a reset. And I know that the children will be especially sorrowful. But we're all here. Thank you. Thank you, Richard.
This is not easy for the family. Let's acknowledge the effort, and the grandson has spoken as well. We'll ask everyone to stand again, if they would, for the final song that we will sing. The family may remain seated. What a day that will be when my Jesus I shall see. There is coming a day when no heartache shall come, No more clouds in the sky, no more tears to dim the eye. All is peace forevermore on that happy golden shore. What a day, glorious day that will be. What a day that will be, when my Jesus I shall see. When I look upon his face, the one who saved me by his grace, then he'll take me by the hand and lead me through the promised land. What a day, glorious day that will be. There'll be no sorrow there, no burdens to bear, no more sickness, no more pain, no more parting over there. And forever I will be with the one who died for me. On a day, glorious day that will be. What a day that will be, when my Jesus I shall see. When I look upon his face, then he'll take me by the hand and lead me through the promised land. What a day, glorious day that will be. One more time, what a day it will be. What a day that will be, when my Jesus I shall see. When I look upon his face, the one who saved me by his grace, then he'll take me by the hand to the promised land. What a day, glorious day that will be. You may be seated this afternoon. It's a full house, Ray, as you saw. And whenever we have a midweek, midday funeral, whenever I conduct one or I'm attending one, I always wonder, who will we get out? People are working, they have other commitments, and so on. But the tremendous turnout, the place is full, the tremendous turnout is a tribute to Debbie and their love for her and for the Dulmage family. Ray and family. Want to acknowledge the full complement of church pastors are in the room from the Pentecostal Church. Both the Trimbles and the Davises are here today. Also, in the last week or so, I was texting the two assistants I had out at the church during my time. Both Mike Anthony and Scott Lockwood today acknowledge the loss of Debbie, and they want the A-team to know that and express to you their sympathies as ones who worked with Debbie and me, and they're very sad and heartbroken as well. If you've ever conducted a funeral or ever given a eulogy at one, as we've heard today, you know that it is challenging to summarize a person's life in only a few minutes. That was my difficulty in the last few days, knowing that Debbie would be graduating to heaven. I think of the 6 years that Debbie and I worked together closely over at the Pentecostal Church. So many memories surface, and I have found it challenging to be mentioning only a few of them. In an effort to help myself out, I was reaching for our old photo albums and found the old Carlton Place photo albums earlier this week, full of photos, hundreds of photos literally taken over the church and everything we were involved in during those years, and I had to edit out the pictures and come up with the best of the best and the most memorable of them all and so on. And Debbie was so intricately involved in the church when I arrived and I became the pastor, nothing for her changed. It was just me that had to make the adjustments, you know what I mean? During our time working together, I had the assistants, as I mentioned to you. They filled pastoral roles, but I really leaned on Debbie for 7 vacation Bible schools, which I wanted to run because I felt I just wanted to run the vacation Bible schools. I thought something's going to be lost if I don't run them. And I had run years of kids camp prior to coming to the church. And I thought, well, the old skills will come back and we'll just run vacation Bible school. And so everything from buses to crafts to recruiting volunteers to cleanup to juice for the kids. And it's a very thankless job running a vacation Bible school. Believe me, there's no thanks. Everyone just is noisy and then they leave. But Debbie and we ran 7 of those together. Then there was the sanctuary expansion project to accommodate a growing church, and Debbie was very involved in that. And I thought at the time, oh my, the long list of details. Debbie and I will get together and we'll write out everything that needs to be done, everything from shadow boxes for windows to painting to the carpet, and she brought in samples and so on. And she wasn't on the board then, but then I invited her to board meetings kind of sneakily, but nobody complained because Debbie needed to be there because she was such an influencer behind the scenes. She knew the people so well. So Debbie was suddenly in board meetings, and I was extremely glad for that. But the expansion project was huge. It was immense, and she was very, very involved. I can't imagine it happening as smoothly as it did without her, Ray. I want you to know that. And so many of you were there at the time and participating. So there was the vacation Bible schools. There was our expansion project. Then it was strongly in my heart to be paying the debt off. So I thought, I'm not going to create debt and then not pay it off. That's a part of the vision here. And so then our attention turned to debt reduction and meetings and capital campaigns. And you talk about boring meetings. Those are boring meetings. They really are. The exciting part is the building of a building. But the boring part is the debt reduction. And so a few of you were on the board at that time. And you remember Debbie was on the board for those years. She formally got on by vote and was in on the debt reduction years. It's extremely important for me to say that. I want everybody to know that because she wasn't just there for the fun part, which was the picking of the colors of the carpet and things like that, but it was also the heavy lifting of the payments. And I believe she went with me over to the Royal Bank here to the manager, and we talked together to the banker and so on, and set up a plan and so on and so forth. Some of you know what that's all about, but she was a part of it right till the end. And I pulled out of my photo album this past week the Carleton Place Canadian headline that was with me and then Gordon Sample and Debbie, and we were burning the loan. And that was extremely important. It was a wonderful day of victory for us to be a debt-free church. I'm only saying all this because Debbie was so intricately involved and had a vision for it. Now Gordon is gone. I remember we spoke to Kay when we lost Gordon, and we were heartbroken. And losing Debbie is quite major to me personally. Since all those things I've mentioned, countless conversations over the years about the parsonage, living in it, things had to be fixed and painted, this and that, things at the church. I was sending mail outs, getting the envelopes and so on. And there was never a complaint from Debbie. I don't think I ever heard her say anything negative ever once, even when she could have, even when it would have been justified to do so. She never, ever did. And that influenced me. I was very, very blessed with her attitude. And Debbie became my sounding board for ideas, both the good ones and the not so good ones. Let me just say that. There was one day that comes to mind when I was on a roll with ideas. Okay, I had an idea and I said to Debbie, look, we need to do this and that. And she says, no, it won't work. Not enough money and board won't go for it. I said, okay. So then I went back to the parsonage in defeat. Debbie was up at the church. I went back a couple of more hours later. I said, look, you know that idea? I said, I've got another totally different angle on that. I said, we could do it this way. She said, it won't work. Don't have the money. Board won't go for it. I said, okay, I'll just go back to my hole and crawl in it. Went back to the house, came up a little later, and I said, she said, it won't work. I said, I didn't even get the idea out of my mouth. She says, you're on a roll. It's a bad idea day. I said, you're absolutely right. Went back to my house in defeat. True story. But Debbie and I kind of got along really, really well. She had a brother exactly my age, and so she could handle me, no problem. It was a matter of me getting used to her saying, like I had the sister I never had, for example, and she became that. And so, again, I had the adjustments. She had no adjustments to make. None. I want to just say on a personal level that one day in the parsonage, a phone call came for me, not a church call, a personal call, and the opportunity was being given to me as a graduate of Ontario Theological Seminary to see if I wanted to continue my studies. And I said, oh, well, I don't know if I can do that. I said, you need money and brains, and I don't have a lot of either at the moment. And the fellow was quite persistent, and the recruiter was talking at length. And I said, let me meet you in Toronto, and we'll talk about it. And so time moved along, and I met the recruiter in Toronto, and we talked about it, and I was going to move on to doctoral level studies. Blew me away. And he says, the recruiter in Toronto says, now you need somebody who knows you really well, who you trust, who can fill out a reference for you. And I said, well, okay, it's got to be someone from the church to prove that I'm an actual pastor in a church. I needed someone on the board, a deacon. And I'm thinking, okay, Debbie checks off all the boxes here. And so that meeting ended, and I went back to home, and I got the paperwork and the application and so on. And finally, look at the application. It's about 10 pages long. I said, oh, what am I going to do? And I thought, the only person I can trust would be Debbie. She's the only person that knows me this well. She can fill in all the blanks. And I went back to her one day, and I said, Debbie, look, I don't have an idea. I have something else for you today. I said, look, can you fill out this reference for me? I need you. You're the only person I think I can rely on. And it's 8 or 10 pages. I said, here's the envelope. Here's the stamp on it to send to Los Angeles. All you have to do is fill it all out, put it in the envelope, and mail it. I won't even know what you ever said. And she said, yeah, no problem. And that application did go through and get me into the program. So it's a bit of a personal thing to me. And I'm taking the loss of Debbie much worse than I was expecting. And when I was in the room with the family there, I thought I just might lose it today, but we're not going to lose it. Considering all these memories and thoughts and what the family has shared, when I think of Debbie, there's 3 traits that come to mind. Willing to serve. As a volunteer, all the things I've mentioned, the board, if you've ever served on a church board, it's hardcore volunteering right there. And then a huge heart for others at all times, which really was the fuel that moved her along committees, other involvement, family, grandchildren. She had a heart for people. And thirdly, not afraid of hard work. Willing to serve, huge heart for others, not afraid of hard work. The verses were read earlier, 1 Corinthians 13. These verses out of the love chapter, it's known as the love chapter, were spoken by Ray to Debbie while she slept, while they were knowing that she was going to graduate, she's going to die. And these were some of the words that she heard. If, as they say, the hearing's the last to go, if you've ever been in a situation, you know you can speak to the dying person. And she would have heard the verses from the love chapter. Love never fails, verse 8. But where there are prophecy, Paul writes, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, the knowledge will pass away. For we know in part, Paul writes, and we prophesy in part. But when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, Paul writes. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put childish ways behind me. Now, Paul says, today, now, we see but a poor reflection in a mirror. But then we shall see face to face. Now, the present day, Paul writes, I know in part, but then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these remain, these three, as Allison did include in her remarks, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. And these are the tail end verses of the love chapter. These verses explain that love is enduring. The spiritual gifts are mentioned, but not all of them, because Paul's not making theological statements here. He's just leading up to the last verse. He says the spiritual gifts will cease. He mentions two of them. He says there's tongues, there'll be still knowledge, prophecy. It will all be a part of what we're doing now, but it will cease someday. But he says, but love will endure forever. So Paul is saying right in verse 8, he says, a lot of what we know is temporary. Isn't that the truth? Life is temporary, but really the love chapter is about the love of God. And he's saying love of God will endure forever. We move along in these verses. We will not be fully completed until Jesus returns. That's in verse 9. Verse 10, we ought to be growing and maturing now. Verse 11, children live for the temporary. The children live for today. Adults live for the permanent. Paul's saying, are you going to be childish in your faith, or are you going to be mature in your faith? If you're going to be mature in your faith, then you're going to be loving and not childish. It's exactly what's happening here. It's exactly what he's saying. Saying love is enduring, and what it produces endures. We get to verse 12, and Paul is using an image, a word picture, which he often does. He says, now we see but a poor reflection as in a mirror. Now, there was no mirrors in the Bible. Nobody looked at a mirror on the wall like we would have looked at this morning. The mirror would have been more like a piece of bronze. It would have been polished hundreds of times by a servant, probably. Just polished and polished and polished. But still, if they would look in the bronze mirror, the shiny surface, there would still be what? Paul says it, an imperfect reflection. It's not perfect to look in silver or bronze or gold, as shiny as it can be. That's what Paul is saying. Paul is saying, today we have an imperfect understanding of everything, and nothing has changed today that Paul isn't writing about. We don't look in mirrors that are bronze, we look in mirrors that are glass. But Paul is contrasting, and he's saying, someday we will see him. We will see the Lord and know the Lord to the fullest extent possible. Someday we will see his face. I got news for you. When Debbie breathed her last, 5 seconds after that moment, Debbie saw the face of God. She was face to face with the God that she served. That's what the Bible teaches. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. 1 Corinthians 13, which we opened with, where, O death, is your victory? Where is the victory for the believer? Where's your sting? Where is it? It only hurts during the temporary time, the time that we're here. Someday we will see the Lord. I hope you see his face someday. I hope you're living for him today. We will see the Lord's face and know him to the fullest extent possible. The believer's understanding of the Lord and his gifts, as mentioned here, will approach the Lord's understanding of us. Because right now, the Lord knows us better than anybody knows us. We get to the last verse. We see faith, hope, and love are listed. These are like the big three of the virtues: faith, hope, and love. But whatever we're putting faith in and whatever we're putting hope in, will not be fully fulfilled and perfectly realized until we're in heaven. We need to realize how temporary this life is. We notice the last virtue of the big three. The big three is just what I'm calling faith, hope, and love. But Paul ends it and says, but love is the greatest of these. Have we not heard that as a theme today in everything that's been said? Everybody that spoke mentioned it. And no, we didn't get our notes together in advance and make sure we're all saying the same thing. This is what Debbie was. Debbie was love. And she personified the love of God. 1 John 4:8 does say, God is love. Debbie was godly to me, and maybe to you. Heaven will be the place for the expression of nothing but perfect love towards God and each other. Debbie is going to love heaven because she had such a big heart for others after God. Until that day arrives when we see his face, Debbie enjoys the presence of the Lord and will be there to welcome us and the A-team and the grandchildren and Ray when we arrive someday. None of this comes to completion. This is the point that Paul's making. None of this comes to fruition until the Lord returns or the believer dies in Christ. When the believer sees him face to face at death, absent from the body, present with the Lord. On May 5th, which was a Sunday, my phone rang, and the advent of social media means that you can messenger people and get on a little video call with them. Whether you want the call or not, whether you're ready or not, it's kind of a cool idea. If you don't mind having your face on somebody else's phone, you're speaking to them, and maybe so many of you know that experience. Debbie called me. And we had spoken so many times over the years, many times over the years. We remained in contact over the years. We just did. And I had received a number of calls when Debbie was in failing health. I thought, this isn't good anymore. It's not just a run-of-the-mill thing. We got a problem. I thought, oh, we got a problem, Debbie. And she was going to have this test and that test, this test and something else still. Some doctor was prescribing something else. I thought, Debbie, how do you survive it all? And on this particular day, which was a Sunday afternoon, she phones. And so suddenly her face is on the phone and my face is on her phone. And she's talking away. And I thought, Debbie's going to graduate soon. I thought soon will be her graduation day. And she talked, and a lot of it made sense. Some of it didn't make sense. I remember when my mother died, a lot of what she was saying to me on a phone call didn't make sense at all. I thought, Mom, you've lost whatever you're sick of. It's affecting your mind. And that's earthly death. Maybe some of you also talked to Debbie and had that experience. I talked to Ray. He said others have. Debbie was calling people that day. That was her day to contact people, May 5th. And I thought, Debbie's going to graduate. And Debbie has graduated today. We're attending her graduation ceremony. Even if Debbie had a chance to come back and be with all of us, she wouldn't want to, because she has experienced the presence of God, what we all aspire towards. And I hope that's your heart today. I hope that's your aspiration. Whether you love the Lord or you're thinking about it or you're not in love with the Lord or wherever you are, I say, Debbie was a friend of yours. Follow her example. Live for the Lord day in and day out through difficult times and good times. Honor the Lord and he will honor you. We'll have the Barker staff come at this time.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. The other night, dear, as I lay sleeping, I dreamt I held you